Hey, welcome to 100 Mile Drive, a channel where I teach you to buy the right car. And today I have a 2025 Chevrolet Equinox EV, a true $33,000 car. And this is exactly the car most people are shopping for to get the lease special of $279 a month. And for that, you get front wheel drive, 220 horsepower, and get this, 320 miles of range. But the biggest question I have today, how does this car feel to drive for $33,000 and how does it stack up to something like Tesla Model Y, which is more than $10,000? And if you're watching 100 Mile Drive for the first time, well, this is the channel where I say before you buy a Chevy Equinox EV or any other car, don't just settle for a 5-minute test drive around the dealership block. Instead, rent a similar car just like I did and drive it for at least 100 miles on city streets, highway, and twisty roads to be able to answer the biggest question I'm answering on this channel: how does it feel to drive? And first, a quick walk around this Chevy Equinox EV just to discuss its exterior styling. And guys, I really like what they did with this car here. I think it looks pretty modern and sleek. Last week I reviewed Tesla Model Y and I said how simple that front fascia looks. And here, that's not the case. Look at the slim headlamps and how they transition into this grille. Again, making it look pretty sleek. And look at the bumper area. This doesn't look like a typical EV bumper because it has a lot of cool elements in it, kind of adding sophistication and overall modern look and feel. And in my favorite blue color, I think this car looks fantastic. And by the way, in RS trim as well. Now, coming on the side, these are pretty big wheels actually, 245, 55, R19, front and rear, and pretty comfortable Michelin tires. And we're gonna discuss about these tires and wheels on the twisty roads, how they actually hold up, when you put them a little bit under load. And overall, it's a very nice sloping roof and looks pretty nice, sizable crossover. Coming on the rear, this is again, pretty sleek looking. I think they've done overall a good job. And you see how the light bar just lit up now, and then the grab handles open. So as you approach this vehicle, it's very similar to Tesla. It just opens up for you. So I like that, they added those little things here. Now let's quickly look at the trunk area. Of course, there's no power lift gate, and the trunk is not sensing the key for some reason. Now it did open. And this is what it looks like. It's slightly less space here, 26 cubic feet versus 30 in Tesla. But overall, pretty good space, no spare. You get the repair kit and more storage space here. There's little bins here. You can put your loose stuff. And then there's a 12-volt socket here. And you can drop these seats pretty easily. Of course, there's no buttons. You don't get that for $33,000. Let's do this side first. Oh, there you go. I just did it and I forgot how to do it again. So there you go. So pretty sizable area, but of course in something like Tesla Model Y, there's more space. This is like 50 and the other one is like 76 in the Model Y. All right, let's do a quick door sound check. Okay, pretty heavy door and sounds pretty solid. Yeah, sounds pretty solid. All right, let's get on the inside. And let's quickly discuss the interior of the Chevy Equinox EV. Now, this is what the cabin looks like initially. Now, let's quickly discuss the door quality, right? Now, this is a soft touch, some kind of soft material. Pretty soft, by the way. It doesn't look high quality, but pretty good overall to the feel. Now, this is your plastic. Look how it's already has some little scratches here, some discoloration. So it's kind of like cheap looking plastic. This is soft touch, more of your plastic. So this is kind of what you expect, right, at this price range, I guess. Some hard plastic here. Now, as we go throughout the cabin, same thing. Now look at this massive kind of vent solution here. Everything looks kind of massive as far as the design of this vehicle. Now this is your plastic as well here. Some hard plastic, soft plastic here. Overall, not bad, I would say. Nothing creaks that much. There's a little rattle comes from this area. Exactly how it sounds when you're driving on the highway. Other than that, let's look at the design. So you press the brake pedal and the car engages. There is no start stop button anywhere, which is pretty cool. It's exactly copied from Tesla. Look at this middle screen. It looks pretty nice. And this is that 17.7-inch middle screen as well. Now I want to quickly talk about this center right here. I think they've done a great job, right? It's kind of like everything you need in a car. Now this is your niche tray. You can put your phone right here, right? This is the phone. This is your cup holders. Let's do a quick test. Now I can put my Starbucks cup, fits in really nicely. Now this is a thinner cup. Usually this is very wobbly, but overall it's not bad. So it holds pretty well. And look at this little solution here. You can put my, car key, the other BMW key, which we still have. And yeah, this is a nice area to have. The center console looks a little kind of weird as far as material, and it's a little flimsy when you like kind of press it, but not bad overall. There's a little tray here, and then there's another deep pocket there. So a lot of storage solutions, right? And the biggest solution, which I really like to see in EVs, comes right here, right? This is my wallet. This is, you can put more stuff right here. So not bad overall. Now these are your fabric seats, pretty comfortable fabric seats. I do like to see them sometimes. They are really comfortable, and I think they fit pretty well in this car. Now the other part I want to say is that the part I like about the regular cars, right, like entry-level cars, is I like to see these knobs, right? This is to adjust your temperature, how easy it is. Today I was driving and enjoying this. This is to adjust your intensity, right, of your climate control. I mean, I love this. It's there on the screen, but then there's a knob you can just rotate and just adjust, and then your essential buttons here. The only thing I miss is the drive modes, right? You have to go to the drive modes menu and select sport, normal, whatever, my mode. You can configure that, which is not, I wish there was some kind of button here somewhere, but I guess that's what it is. The other part I wanted to show real quick is the one pedal driving in this car. Like, you can go to this controls menu, not navigation, let's say home, swipe controls, let's say more controls, and then drive and park. And look, I can disable one pedal driving, which it was normal or high. Now I'm keeping it in off, but then there is this paddle shifter only on the left side, right? There's none on the right side, where I can manually slow down the car. I can literally bring it to the complete stop. So I think that's a pretty cool option. Yeah, overall it looks pretty elegant, and it has a lot of features for $33,000. Now let's jump on the rear seats. All right guys, it's real quick in the rear of Equinox EV. First, the headroom, right? There's plenty of headroom. I am 6'2", and I still have some room left, so it's good for tall people. Now seats kind of feel that you sit upright. They're not as comfortable, let's say, as in Model Y, but they're fairly comfortable. And don't forget, they're fabric, so they're soft, so it feels good to lean against them. Now you have your center console right here with two cup holders, so it's not bad. It feels okay. It's, again, pretty soft. And overall, my legroom space is pretty decent, right? I have pretty long legs and I fit here pretty fine. It's just, it's a raised floor because of the batteries, so your knees are kind of up, not very kind of a usual position, right? But you can definitely spend hours in this car. All right, let's go ahead and drive it. And first I'm gonna drive Chevy Equinox EV in the city. So I'm going to, in my modes, to set this to sport, right? And then we're gonna go ahead, hit it to D, and let's go. Now let's first discuss acceleration in this car. Now 0 to 60 in this vehicle is around 8 seconds, 7.6, 8 seconds. How does it actually feel in the real world? Well, it feels, to be honest with you, something like 8 seconds. And by the way, in sport mode, it has this like EV kind of sound, which sounds exactly like in BMW, except in BMW, they use the famous composer Hans Zimmer. Here, I try to Google it, I try to look it up. I don't see that they had any collaboration with him, but it sounds exactly like this. I don't know if you can sense it in the video, but let's do again a quick launch. All right, let's go. I'm flooring it, and it moves. Now, overall, the car is, I think, tuned in a way not to like jump. It's tuned to gradually accelerate, just to kind of deliver that, smooth acceleration. And I think they've done a phenomenal job. By no means you want to go fast in this car. And one reason is that if you're buying the front wheel drive, they didn't do a good job with this torque steering, right? Like when you press the gas pedal, your steering starts to kind of move around. Even at the higher speeds, when you kind of floor it, the steering just kind of, you know, moves around a little bit in your hands. Like let's say if I let go and then I floor it. Now you can't test it here and show it in a video, but basically that's the problem with front wheel drive cars. If they are not done right, then your steering will always slightly like move left, right, not giving you that sense of confidence, right? Like not something I like, and that's why you kind of want the rear wheel drive. But let's say, you know, we're not driving enthusiasts, right? Then overall it has a pretty pleasant pickup, right? And most people will drive it in normal mode, and that's kind of like your chilled mode in Tesla, where things become even more gradual, even more kind of smooth, right, in terms of acceleration. Now let's talk about brakes. Brakes in this car pretty solid, by the way. They do have this initial press, like when you initially press them, they do feel slight, you know, that regenerative kind of mushiness, but it's very little, right? But overall, it's a solid pedal, right? So initially you will feel that regeneration, but then it'll brake really well. So I'm kind of like liking actually brakes in this car. It's done right. The other part I'm pretty happy to see is that you don't have any kind of motion sickness in this vehicle. Like in the past when I test drove Chevy Bolt, a lot of the earlier Chevy products, the Spark, whatever, Nissan Lift, right? They all had this kind of motion sickness in them, and I really hated that. Now in this 2025 model, I don't see any, you know, issues with that. The car feels very smooth. I think they try to mimic a regular gasoline car as much as they can, and that's why also by default the car is just coasting. It's not one pedal driving, but you can set that if you want. And yes, it does literally feel like a normal car, and that's one thing you're going to appreciate in this vehicle. Now, as far as the steering is kind of light to medium. It is not like a super direct steering, but at the same time, you know, it does a good job. You know, this is suspension we're going to discuss right now after this, but overall it's a fairly kind of soft car, and you know, it maneuvers pretty fine. Now in Tesla Model Y, for example, you have a more crisp steering and more athletic suspension, and that blend gives you the more agile kind of you know, turn and twist kind of a feel, right? So you move more with the more athleticism in that car, where here things are a bit more relaxed, actually a lot more relaxed, and for some people this might feel a little slow, but overall I think it's tuned pretty well, as a response pretty well, and the actual tune of this car is just your daily commuter, and it's, you know, geared towards everyone, right? Everyone who just wants to, you know, simple, relaxed driving. Now let's discuss the suspension next. All right, now I'm driving on my favorite road, Tampa Avenue, where you hit a lot of imperfections on the road, little potholes and all that kind of stuff. I already spent pretty much a day with this car, and suspension here is on a soft side, right? It's a soft suspension. It is not sophisticated. So what does it really mean, right? If you test drive this car around the dealership block, you will find it very smooth, kind of relaxed, and if this is what you want, you're gonna really like it. Now overall, when I hit something like this right now, which is not like big potholes, these are not humps, not like big uneven surfaces, then responds fairly well. There's no kind of gliding premium feel that you feel in this, something you feel in Model Y. It just soaks the bumps, you know, it just does a good job, right, to soak the bumps, you know, with the simple suspension setup. Now, as you spend more time with this car and drive it in different conditions, like road conditions, let's say 405 freeway here in Los Angeles, you will see that because it's a soft suspension and it's a heavy car, around 4,800 pounds, in certain places it'll feel like riding a horse. It'll be a little bit horsey. It'll jump a little jumpy, right? Because when suspension hits something, it recovers, but it needs a little bit more motion to recover, to stabilize the vehicle. It's not something that's a turnoff, right? For example, I rented Honda Ioniq 5 and reviewed it on a channel. To me, that was a little bit of a turnoff. And I was told, by the way, in comments that the later version fixed that. So maybe I'll review Ioniq 5 as well at some point. But here, basically only in certain conditions you will experience that horsey ride, and also on certain humps it'll feel a little bumpy, right? It's kind of funny. It's soft in a way, but in certain conditions it'll be bumpy, and that's how you know this is not a sophisticated suspension. In Model Y, for example, it's also not electronic adaptive suspension, but the way it's done there, it feels more premium, where car reacts, more in a more controlled way, shorter way. It's a shorter response, and it feels sporty as well, right? You feel like you want to go a little faster. You feel you can take corners more aggressively. Not the case here, but nevertheless, this is still, a pretty decent machine, I would say, right? For $33,000, let's see, what do you really get, right? You get something what I call an essential vehicle. I call this an essential. It's not the car you want, it's the car you need, right? And the biggest selling point for this is the big 85 kilowatt battery, right? Big battery. So you have 320 miles of range, and then Edmunds said they were able to get 356 miles out of this car, front wheel drive. So you have a big battery means you're not gonna run out of juice. And I honestly noticing that. I'm driving this car quite a bit, and battery stays pretty well. Now it's soft suspension, so it's easy to drive. It's pretty relaxed steering. So this is your essential car that you need for your commutes, your long journeys. You're not gonna have your range anxiety. It's pretty spacious cabin here in the front and rear. You have all your cabby storage spaces. It's pretty modern and sleek. So Chevy's not going after Tesla Model Y by, going crazy with tech, even though they copied few features here and there, including the software update and all this, start-stop features. But they are giving you this very essential, fairly good, looking car, and a car that's pretty pleasant to drive. Now let's hit the highway. And now merging a highway, let's go to sport mode, right? And floor it. And then the steering wheel slightly moves. Honestly, I'm not liking that, but that's what the front wheel drive is in some applications. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is sound insulation in this vehicle. And as far as it feels, I think they did a pretty good job. It honestly, to me, feels even better than Tesla Model Y. It's pretty quiet in this cabin, guys. Except there's a motorcycle on the right side, but that you can't do anything about. But let's let the motorcycle go, and I'll measure my actual sound with the meter. All right, guys, I'm back, and let's look at the meter. I'm driving 65. 63, that's pretty quiet. I think Model Y was also around 63, 64. But this is pretty quiet overall, so I definitely like the sound insulation in this cabin. There are some here and there little, you hear some wind noise from this kind of sides here, but not that much. It's pretty good. Now, next thing I really like to test is the mid-range power, right? And in this car would be a good way to test. So we'll stay in the normal mode first. And now, what is it like to, let's say you want to overtake some cars on the freeway, right? Like, is the mid-range power good? So 1, 2, 3, floor it. And it barely picks up speed in the normal mode, barely picks up speed. Yeah, so I mean, this is like the slowest kind of EV I've ever tested, I think, on my channel, quite honestly. Let's go to sport mode, because I think you will be driving. By default, it has normal, but maybe you could go to my modes and configure that to be in, sport or something. Now, 1, 2, 3, floor it. Yeah, this is a little bit better, slightly better. Yeah, slightly better actually, but still kind of on a slower side. Not something, like satisfying. Let's do it one more time. I'm just trying to kind of understand if this is decent enough or not, right? 1, 2, 3, floor it. Yeah, the good thing is it picks up immediately, and I guess in sport mode it's okay. But in normal mode, it will take time to build this power. I also suspect they did this to preserve the battery as much as they can, as they're giving you a lot of juice in this battery. They also want to make sure that you are using this battery the most efficient way possible. right? Because my Fiat had 100, I used to have Fiat 500e in 2015. That had like what, 111 horsepower, but that car was jumping, you know, it was still jumping quite nicely, at least initially, right? Not when you would build the power, but initially it would quickly jump, and that was satisfying. So I think it's just tuned this way, like I said, to preserve this battery. Now overall, what is it like spending hours in this car? Very comfortable, guys. Seats are pretty comfortable. Overall position is pretty comfortable. Great sound insulation, soft suspension. You can use your cruise control, and you can definitely spend hours in this car. Now let's go hit the twisty road so we can discuss the balance, safety, and overall, like, what is it like driving this car under more stress. And now driving Chevy Equinox EV on the twisty road. All right, guys, let's go. I am in a sport mode, and let's go. Now, for those watching 100-mile drive for the first time, why do I bring cars on the twisty roads, right? I bring them so I can kind of test their chassis and balance overall, to basically discuss, like, if someone breaks in front of you, right, how would this car behave? And by driving it on the twisty roads, and in my case also I'm going downhill, it kind of shows me what this car is kind of made of, right? Like, how does it, like I said, chassis behave? All right, so let's look into the Chevy EV Equinox. Well, one thing I can tell you, this car definitely feels the weight. When you start throwing it in the corners, tires feel loaded, like you start hearing tires immediately without even, you know, taking corner aggressively. Shift kind of weight shifts to, you know, depending on which side you go, and then the car holds there. Now, usually electric cars have this low center of gravity, which this car has as well, right? But this is being a taller crossover, you would still be able to feel that low center of gravity, which I say in Teslas, especially when I bring Teslas on the channel, I say they demonstrate that really well, where the car kind of stays planted in the middle, even for like Model X or Model Y. But here, I can tell some of the battery helps this car to be stable, right? Because it's a soft suspension, tires are loaded, we're hitting the corner, you know, it's kind of, I don't want to say struggle, but you can tell it's overwhelmed. And then, okay, this is what I don't like about the front collision warning, as it wants to brake. It already did today, which is not good. But basically, in this car, the soft suspension is not very, it's complemented to some degree by the battery, but still you don't feel the best like representation of that battery pulling the car down, right? So it assists it, right? There is some assistance from the battery, like I said, to keep it centered, but yet because it's heavy, it still feels overwhelmed. So the result is, if somebody breaks in front of you and you're going, let's say at speeds, I would say up to about 45, you can expect, you know, to overtake that. The car will behave pretty well, I would say. But at highway speeds, it might dance around, right? If you do something unexpected, the car might just, like, you know, do a dance move kind of on you, basically behave in an unpredicted manner. So by driving it on twisty roads, you can understand its behavior, and in critical situations, you can kind of know what to expect, right? That's why you kind of want to drive them on a twisty roads, even if these are not sports cars, right? And here also you have a little bit of a horsey feel, again, because it's a soft suspension and heavy vehicle. It does kind of go up and down, but it doesn't in controlled manner, not like wobbly kind of move that would feel unsafe. So, you know, overall it does the job. It's definitely not a fun car to drive on the twisty roads. It's not designed for this. It's designed basically to be a great commuter. But nevertheless, like I said, at moderate speeds, city speeds to moderate speeds, you can even, you know, face unpredicted situation and be able to maneuver out of it. All right, so that's just a quick demonstration. Now let me go ahead and summarize it. All right, guys, I just finished my driving dynamic review of this Chevy Equinox EV, and here are my thoughts. Now, as I already mentioned, this car gives me a vibe of an essential vehicle that you need to get, right? This is not necessarily a car you're like craving for, like you just want to get that, but it's more of a car you need to get, right? It just kind of hits all the checkpoints. And the biggest selling point, like I said, is the battery in this car. You're getting 85 kilowatt battery with 320, I think, real world range in this front wheel drive model for only $33,000 minus the rebate, and that's around 24, 25. And if you have your state local incentives, this can be close to $20,000. And for that, I think this car is worth it. Now, what you get is pretty decent driving dynamics. It's a very comfortable soft suspension, not sophisticated, but it does pretty good job. You have 220 horsepower and around 8 seconds 0 to 60. Yes, it's not fast, but it's it's okay, and it's tuned more for range to give you the smooth power delivery. Seats are pretty comfortable, and overall it's a sleek modern cabin, so it's a nice place to be in, and it is pretty spacious. Like, I cannot say that I am annoyed or I'm not enjoying this car. Yes, I'm enjoying just being in this cabin. It's pretty good. It's pretty modern. Now, it all depends what type of person are you. If you need a essential vehicle, a basic transportation, you don't care too much about driving dynamics, you just want to get something modern and safe, then this is a good car to get. If you're someone like me who prefers, good driving dynamics, who wants something more fun, doesn't care too much about range, in this case of EVs, then you can look up at vehicles like Ford Mach-E, maybe even Lexus RZ 300e, or Tesla Model Y, right? And how does it compare to Tesla Model Y? Well, Model Y is definitely a level above, like especially the Juniper release. It definitely feels more upscale. It definitely feels more premium, feels more sporty. At the same time, it has really good comfort as well. So it feels more sophisticated. It has a lot more tech, premium audio, standard, by the way, now for rear-wheel drive in the Juniper. So there's just overall a lot more stuff. And, it also has good lease special, right? But it'll be around $150 probably more for the, Model Y rear-wheel drive. So this is it, guys. Let me know what you think. Are you considering Chevy Equinox EV? Do you already have one? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. And if you do want to watch my Model Y review, then you can watch this video. And I'll catch you soon.